that was a great surprise. As Nicole said, yeah, we don't typically have conferences that go past 5 o'clock, no less 6. But I know what it's like to stand in between cocktails, so we're going to try to get you out as early as you'd like, maybe 6:20 or so we don't need to. All right, as long as people are laughing, I'm going to keep going. So.
We don't get a chance very often to say something like that.
Yeah. No, I would say that. I mean, all the panels have been great. Hopefully, this is the one you truly were waiting for. Not because I'm moderating, of course, but because we have a fantastic panel. Owners, look, for the owners in the audience and for everyone else, an owners panel special. And why is it special? These are actually the men and women that can move the market. Their decisions as to when to buy, when to sell, when to charter, when not to charter, are actually decisions that, show up in terms of, what people pay or won't pay for assets. So I think it's worthwhile, putting the phones away and, listening carefully to what these men and women have to say. So let me quickly introduce this star panel. All the way to the left is my dear friend, Pappas Hajioannou, who I had the distinct pleasure of taking Safe Bulkers public when I was at Merrill Lynch, and is a dear friend. And if everyone complains about share price, Pappas does as well, but he's one of the few companies that actually has its share price above net asset value and runs an unbelievably efficient company. Also down at the end is Petros Pappas, another good friend who we've done business with through the years, who I've been honored to work with. And Petros, too, has had an incredibly long and successful participation in the industry. We've been lucky to bring him as a public company as well, so that he gets to share his genius with the public out there. And he also is running an amazingly efficient company. We have Nicole, who I've not met before this conference, but I've spent some time with her, and she is the CEO or president of Transmed, and has an amazing set of assets, and we're really curious to get your perspective on life. Aristides has been the CEO and chairman of Euroseas for many years, and has really navigated through very challenging markets and participates in the dry bulk and container space. We have Andreas, who when I come to Cyprus, I always manage to see and love talking shop with him. And his view is particularly interesting, thank you, because he participates not only in dry bulk, but also some other segments. So we can talk beyond dry bulk. And then, of course, our captain needs no introduction other than to say how lucky we are to have him here. You want that on video? You've had a lifetime of hearing people say wonderful things about you, all well deserved. So with that, we'll get into the fun of it. We're going to try to do this a little differently. If you can see, this is like on the back of a few pieces of paper. So we deliberately have kept this a bit unrehearsed. None of the questions have been shared. It will be good to get their unscripted comments. Hopefully they will say some not only consensus views, but hopefully things that are non-consensus views, because those are always the most interesting. Maybe they'll even make a little bit of news today. That would be fun. And with that, let's get into it. So, and one other promise, we're not talking more about regulations. I've heard a lot and nothing is clear, so even these gentlemen probably can't clear it up anymore. So let's start with the dry bulk market. I'm going to first turn to Petros, and anyone on the panel that is participating in the dry bulk market, I want to chime in. But the one thing we continuously hear is the dry bulk market is a sort of no-miss market in 2018, 19. If you look at the analysts, you talk to most of the CEOs, everyone, I hear the same basic story. Some deviation up with supply is the order book is 7 or 8%, very low. Net supply this year is, 2%-ish, maybe it's lower. Demand has to be 4 or 5%, hence, utilization's going to be better, rates are going to be better. That all sounds fantastic. So, Petros, feel free to sort of chime in about all those good things, but I also want to know from all the panelists, what could we be missing? What could be the fly in the ointment in the dry bulk market?
Thank you, Mark. To begin with, I'm not only bullish for 2018 and 19. I'm bullish for beyond that. And the reason is, I'm going to say good things first. The reason is that 18 and 19 seem to have a good demand-supply balance, as you said, almost as you said, because actually supply is not 8%, it's 12%, and it's hidden, and scrapping is not going to be very strong this year, maybe next year, but not this year, so we may even see an increase in supply of 3%. But in any case, it seems that demand-supply balanced well for 18 and 19. And then we have in 2020 the environmental regulations effect. First, that of the sulfur, of the 0.5% limitation in sulfur, which will have two effects. It will oblige vessels to slow down their speed, because the economic speed will be lower with more expensive bunkers. If we have to use distillates instead of fuel oil, and we stop using fuel oil, the price of fuel oil will go down, I don't know, a couple of $100 probably. The price of diesel oil will probably go up, so you'll see a big difference. It's going to be expensive, and therefore you have to go slower. And that will have a positive effect on supply. So that's a good thing. Also, the ballast water treatment plant that we all probably conveniently pushed back as much as we could. 2020 and 21 are going to be the reckoning years, and we'll have to install them. So if you have an older vessel, even 17 or 18 years old, and you have to pass dry dock and install the ballast water treatment plant, and at the same time you have the vessel has to be a good consumer, because if it's a thirsty vessel, then it's going to be more expensive to trade. Some of those vessels will probably go for scrapping. So I think that the environmental regulations that are coming up in 2020 are going to be a bonus for shipping that we didn't expect. Because I have no question in my mind that going forward, we shipowners will once again shoot ourselves on the foot, and we will overorder. It's happening now. It's happening as we speak. And it's not just the shipowners. You see, Vale putting in cooperation with the Chinese, they're having all these Euroseas coming in. It's going to be difficult as far as supply is concerned going forward. Perhaps we will save the day by the environmental regulations, slow down those speeds, and the fact that vessels will have to turn into distillates. This is going to create off-hires. Others are going to install scrubbers. They will take longer off-hires. So my view is that we'll have 2 good years, and we'll probably have a couple of other good years going forward, unless we really overorder, in which case it's anybody's guess. Now, what could go wrong in between?
Let's ask Nicole that.
Sorry? Nicole, yes. Thank you. So you say the
Yeah,
bad news. You go for the bad news.
Petros, your heart wasn't in it, so on the bad part.
Well, you left the difficult part for me, because I actually don't disagree with you. Perhaps the only part that I would disagree a little bit is I'm not as optimistic on the effect of the new regulations in terms of scrapping, because the world fleet is still very, very young. So taking the decision to scrap a 10-year-old is not an easy decision to make, and you have to see low freight rates, and you have no optimism to reach that point. I think I totally agree that we've seen good fundamentals. We have very good reason to be optimistic in the next couple of years. Minor hiccups, governmental interventions or geopolitics or whatnots could put a little bit of a dampen, but not enough. I think the biggest risk, as Mr. Pappas said, is the oversupply, which if we combine with the overregulation of the banking industry and the fact that we're now seeing a lot more newcomers and a lot more alternative financing than we used to. That basically means financing of possibly the wrong deals or maybe just too many of the right deals. When you take out the banks that actually understand the shipping industry, and you're looking at funds or Chinese sale and leaseback deals, these are financial deals that they're all great for some, but they're not the cure.
Great. Paulus, anything different, or maybe is it all positive on the demand side? We didn't really get too deep into that, but what's your point of view on coal and iron ore trends over the next little bit, and what are you thinking for the next couple of years?
Yes, I think it looks positive for the next 2 years, simply on strong demand. Actually, 2017, we were surprised on the strength of the market. The fact that we reached break-even levels in the third quarter, our programming and our charting was to reach this level in the middle of 2018. So the market outperformed in 2017, and despite the order book and the deliveries of 2017, we had very strong demand, which managed to increase freight rates. Now, we all see that demand will outperform supply for 18 and 19. Of course, as Petros was saying, we see increase in ordering already. And generally in shipping, my experience the last 30 years, when we were all agreeing what the market will do, the market was doing something else. So from that point of view, we are taking a cautionary approach. We are not placing any new building orders. We can place, and I hear people, and it's a little bit disappointing to hear people ordering ships to make a 10% on a resale, to resell it at a 10% profit in 2 years' time or 3 years' time. This is not the reason to order ships. I always believe in my life to order ships out of profits, not out of losses. The last 3 years we had terrible losses, and we cannot start ordering ships out of those losses. So we will refrain from that game.
Aristides, do you want to talk, should we rotate a little bit to the container side? You can, if you have 1 or 2 sentences on dry bulk, jump in, but you're our container representative today, so we definitely want to hear about that market.
Okay, I'll tell you about containers in a second. I want to say 2 things on the dry bulk side. The demand is an unknown, and it can go wrong. This is one thing that can go wrong if China stops importing iron ore and coal, especially coal, where they have their own capacity. I don't think it will happen, but it's always a danger. Back in 2016, we saw China import less coal than in 2015, I think maybe by about 15%. This was reversed totally in 2017 when they imported 15% more than the previous year. So China is really what will cause demand or can cause demand to go sour, but it can also be very positive. So apart from all these fundamental things where there's so many things intertangled, there is one thing that shows us that we are not at a bad stage in the market today. Ship prices are still low, and historically they are low. And ideally, as we all learn, if you can buy low and sell high, you're fine, you make a great profit. So you should be buying low when you can't even see the logic of it. Right now, we're still below average, so I think, it's reasonable to expect that we will see asset prices improve, and of course this will happen because charter rates will also improve to above average. So that was my comments on dry bulk. The container market, I think it is at the level which is following the dry bulk market, but with a year's lag. In dry bulk's worst year has been 2016. That was the worst year for the last, 35 years, since the 1980s. Containers' worst year was 2017, the beginning of 2017. We already see that market having turned. That market depends a lot, or totally, I would say, on global GDP growth, and this has been stronger than expected, and this has really resulted in more containers being carried around the world. So with the projections that we currently see on global GDP growth for the next couple of years, if they materialize, I am confident that we will have a strong demand growth. Last year it was 5%, 5.4%. We expect similar rates of growth in 2018 and 2019. 2018, we have already had a lot of deliveries. The fleet has increased by 1.2% already, and we expect it to increase by another 3 or 4%. So we expect a balanced demand supply in 2018, but there is a positive momentum. And 2019 at this stage seems extremely good. The balance sheet, the fundamentals seem extremely good between supply and demand. So we are quite confident that the container market is going to follow the dry bulk market with a year's lag and continue improving. And without wanting to go into the cascade issues and the big versus the small ships, we all know that obviously the one size affects the other size. The markets, at the end of the day, they move quite much in parallel. However, there is so many big ships being built and no small ships being built that I feel a little bit more positive for the smaller container ships. And this is the area where we are in, so I had to say that.
Thank you. All right, now we're going to put Captain Tsakos to work, as well as Andreas. We went from a lot of optimism on dry bulk to so-so maybe on containers, although you're optimistic, to tankers. So crude, product. Andreas, I know you are in a bunch of sectors, but we're asking the two of you to be our tanker representatives today. And nice of you to defer. Nice touch.
I'm not that old.
Even a better touch.
On the tankers, we have seen all what Petros have described before. We have seen it for many years, many years. And the logic that you are applying and you are thinking, we have applied the same logic for tankers. We are still waiting to see the improvement.
You should not lose hope, Captain Panagiotis.
You see, I told you this would be fun.
We don't lose the hope. I'm an optimistic, but you can see.
There's a lot of glasses half full here.
But by nature, yes.
Andreas, do you want to pick it up?
Yes. I will try and
And you can disagree.
hasn't
You can
been,
disagree with your peers too.
I-
That's also appreciated.
No, I don't disagree with anything, no. I agree with almost everything was said. I will add that shipping is fed by inflation. Now we have 10 long years of zero interest rates. So soon we're going to be coming into an era of inflation. And that's very, very good news. I think we're all going to be surprised by the improvement of the freights due to the inflationary pressure, which makes stocking very attractive. So on the top of all this talk of increased coal and increased demand and all that, there is an element of everything becoming more expensive through inflation, so the need of stocking. And that can surprise us all, how strong the market can get. We saw that in the 80s, in the early, late 70s and in the late 80s. On the scrapping, I think we're going to see scrapping continue for two reasons. One reason is because the rates, the scrapping rates are very high compared to the past few years. And the second reason is because we are now coming to the end of these long charters for the conversions, if you remember, of the 2007, 2008. The VLCC has been converted into VO, very large ore carriers. And that all the charters are coming to the end, plus the technical problems these ships develop. I think we're going to see a bit of scrapping, especially on the Capes. Continue. On the containers, there is one more positive thing, which is the cost of building the containers is so high. So for the medium-sized ships, the smaller the medium-sized ships, it doesn't make sense. The current rates don't make sense to go and order ships. So first we're going to have to see a steep improvement of rates before we see our greediness coming in and putting orders, like allowing feasibility study to build the container. So all these are positive news. What is the negative news? The negative news is the negative prospects is China. China, there is a big talk about, known to all of us, about the increasing debt, the bank debt to the business there. And we know we've been hearing about recession in China for 20 years, and it never materializes. But at some time we may be surprised by China. What was the other one? The order, yes, and we should never underestimate our greediness. Right?
All right. Well, that brings us to the next topic, because greed has always been a powerful motivator. I'm going to start with Petros, my favorite person on the panel. But you're limited to 1 minute per person here. So as we all notice, everyone is pretty optimistic on dry bulk. So the question is, and I think someone on the panel identified that assets are way below typical value. So we're sort of bottom of the cycle prices. So the question is, why aren't more people pushing up prices in the S&P market right now? Why are asset values so low? And I'll make this a multiple choice question if you want to limit the time. One, you don't really have the confidence that in the market that has been expressed. Two, you're focused on debt pay down. Three, capital is hard to raise or too expensive. Four, none of the above. Or five, all of the above. It's like an SAT test.
Yeah, I did well on SAT test. I'm not sure what you asked. You asked why vessel prices are low?
Why are you not participating in the S&P market to a large degree? Asset values are so low, and you're so positive on the market. You and everyone else.
First of all, we've lost so much money over those last few years, so there's not as much liquidity as there was before. That's one thing. And second, there aren't enough loans as well.
Okay.
I think these are the main two reasons why prices have gone. Perhaps, I mean, I don't think any of those two were in your list.
I had capital hard to raise or too expensive. So
Okay, all right.
three would have been correct answer. In your
Yeah,
mind.
I think these are the two main reasons.
Okay.
30 seconds.
Excellent. Paulus?
Yeah. Three reasons, the big losses the last 2-3 years. Secondly, we are already invested, all of us, 40, 50, 60 ships, each company. It's more than enough if there is a turnaround of the market. And third, I think the priority is the first money that will be made in the next 2 years will be used for deleveraging. If you deleverage in a good market, you can make a lot of money even in the bad market. So this should be, in our mind at least, a priority.
Nicole?
Well, from our part, Mark, for sure all of the reasons that the gentleman had mentioned are valid for some companies. We have actually been quite active over the past 12 months, picking up a few vessels here and there.
Congratulations. So far, so good.
So, yes, I suppose all of those are valid reasons, but there are many reasons why one would choose to buy or not to buy at any given point in time.
Okay. We can go right down the line here.
Yes. I think that prices are still low and one would invest because of all the reasons that we said, that the other said we are not investing. One other reason is that the people that invested in the very high prices, when the prices were so high, were really a lot of new money coming in, either from parties that saw the great party that we had between 2005 and 2008 and said, okay, let's now buy, it's dipped 50%, it's a great opportunity. But this was new money, or I have to say money raised in the capital markets again, which was new money practically. So the new money doesn't like the business at all right now, and they're not putting money in. So I think that is one of the reasons. The correct answer is 3, as you said.
Okay.
Lack of capital.
All right. Time's up.
Okay, thanks. Just in time.
What I'm gonna say is that what are the good ships? We don't see them.
Huh.
There are very few quality ships on the
So are
market.
the price levels artificial?
They are prices.
Paulus bought a 2010 ship for a good price recently on auction. One off. Okay. Well.
That's few weeks ago, yes. But especially on the container, I was looking the other day, and there was no container on the market, only 4,000 to 10,000.
No good
TEUs.
vessels.
No good vessels.
No vessels at all,
No good. Unless you go on very old vessels. Now prices are there, and I don't understand why the brokers are putting the prices so low when there are no ships. Well,
It's a ploy of the banks.
the same goes for the tanker, but I of the tanker, which is very old. Yeah, very old tankers on the market. Well, yeah, prices stick. Sorry, come off, but not on the quality.
Captain,
The truth,
are you a buyer?
oh no, I'm not. The truth why we are not buying is that the values are, the ships are very, very cheap. So we ourselves doubt. And what we're doing here, telling you all this good news, is to get carrots from you. When the prices of these ships from $17 million will go up to 37, 40 million, then we will compete who will buy the first ships. And I say this with all due respect to the good judgment that we have and the good name that we have as a buyers and everything. But I am the older here, therefore I have done most probably most of the transactions. Well, I've done so many mistakes. I only talk for myself. Of course, we have done well at the end, because 6 out of the 10 times we were right, but 4 out of 10 times we were wrong. And we were heavily wrong, not slightly wrong. Because when you compete on prices of say 60 and $70 million, 10% is $6 million. So I'm just going to, can I say a few more?
You have an unlimited time. Moderator's discretion here.
I really don't know much more what to add, other than I like that double L. Double L. Listen and learn. That was fantastic. And I'm learning a lot. I really. And I also have videoed all of our discussion. So I only hope and wish next time we are here, next year, hopefully, we analyze not why the market will go up, but why we analyze how right we were to predict what we have predicted. And I repeat, I am the most optimistic of all of you, and I wish you are right. I don't say you are wrong, but I am saying that caution is mainly needed when always, but when the prices are high, then the mistakes are well carried. So see you next year, hopefully, and very good luck.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, sorry.
Another bite at the apple for you?
I need to add something that it hasn't come out. There is a big threat we should not underestimate, and maybe this is the reason that people are cautious on buying expensive quality ships. All right, and this is the horrendous shipbuilding capacity out there, which is a big threat. If we get out of control, prices in 2 years can be collapsed. So that's the threat.
Hard to have confidence when you feel that's in the background. I get that.
Faith is one thing, but new building is another.
All right, I figured we should get personal because there's only 400 or 500 of us here. So I will throw this out to the panel. I think everyone can participate. And what reminded me was we're now, I think, past your 10-year anniversary as a public company. So for those that have gone public, and I think most of the people on the panel were the decision makers, in 2 minutes or less, are you glad you went public? Why or why not? And for those that are private, and you guys are big private companies, so you have the ability, would you like to be public? We'll go left to right. Petros, I won't start with you. You can hear Paulus's answer first.
I like both sides. A public company makes you a better company. It makes you more organized, and you are ahead of the game. You go down, and we see cash flows and results, and we see projections 3 and 5 years forward, and we take the right steps before something hits us. When we were private, we didn't care. We say, okay, it's profit losses. We will manage somehow. We pay more money. We get the loss. We hide it somewhere, and nobody cares. So
I'm glad you stopped hiding.
Right now, because on the public side, we couldn't expand in 2016 and 17 because we had to sort out the leverage and be correct. I thought when I was planning the company with 50% finance that it was a pretty safe leverage policy. When the market dropped to 35-year lows, we reached 80%, and that was not acceptable to the banks, and we had to sit down and use part of our liquidity, the company's liquidity, to support our loans. So we did that, and we planned, to be honest with you, for a bad market for another 3 years in 2016. Thank God it didn't happen, but that was the plan. So as a private company, we would have never go down into such detail to plan 3 years ahead to face the bad market. We would be hopeful and optimistic that things will change. Now, on the private side, we invested in 16 and 17, buying ships, both in Cyprus and in the Monaco office, together with my brother. We have a new company there. We didn't want to take any debt on those vessels, and we believe we will make a good return there because it was invested in the right time. So both sides of the business is attractive, but for those of us that have gone public, you see that you become a more organized company, and there are a lot of advantages. I'm doing finance in the public company at below 200 as we talk, which below 200 basis points, which is what is keeping our costs down and what reduces our break-even level. You know, if we didn't have all these projections, all this visibility, and the bankers could see the performance of this company over the last 10 years. 2017, we were the best stock market performer of all shipping companies. Why? Because we took the right actions in 2016. As a private owner, I would never care to do these things. You know? So everything has a positive and a negative. There is a cost element, we know this, it's $1 million or $2 million a year to run the audited accounts, to have the experts, to have the Sarbanes Oxley, or be ahead of the game, but also it gives you other benefits that you don't have as a private owner. So it's not something for owners.
I'm stopping you there only because I want to hear Nicole and everybody else, and the time is slipping away. But Paulos, I'm glad to hear that. I was feeling guilty that I may have taken you public and you regretted it.
Well, Mark Paulos is obviously very right. There's pros and cons to both sides of the coin. We are private, and we plan to stay private, at least in the near future. In my view, the biggest advantage to that is the ability to adapt, to make swift decisions, no matter what the change, what the circumstances. You don't have to wait for your board of directors or your shareholders meetings or your whatnots. And this I think is a big advantage in difficult times, especially.
Thank you. Petros, share your wisdom.
Yeah. For 35 years, or 30 to 35 years, I was buying cheap and selling expensive. Now, what is cheap and expensive is relative, right? And then we went public. If we continued on the private side, we would have done much better because we would have sold out in 2014. In the public domain, you actually don't sell out. I dared suggest it at some point in 2014, and people and analysts said, what are you doing? Everybody's thinking that 2015 is going to be $35,000 for the Capes, and I don't know how many for the Panamax, etc. If you sell now, your share price is going to go down. And it was the wrong thing to do, obviously. And we suffered for 3 years. And of course, at that point comes in the benefits of the public company, because we managed to get hundreds of millions from the public side, right? Which we wouldn't have been able to do privately. But privately, we would have sold earlier. So yes, good and bad, but had we sold, we wouldn't need the money. So I think that, there's lots of pros and cons, right? I'm not going to go. I mean, some of them were already mentioned by Paulis and Nicole. I think that besides the organization that we're obliged to go through and the governance and all that stuff, which is good for the public company, I think we should be dealing with our public companies as if they're private shipping companies, and not pay attention to what analysts say. Next year it's going to be $100,000. Guys, don't sell now. Yeah, but if I sell now, I triple my profit. So I might as well sell now and let the company, let the market go to $100,000. I think we should act as private ship owners most of the time, because this is a business which has ups and downs. It fluctuates. It never stays up. It goes down as well. We should take advantage of good prices and take the good things from the public markets, but also take our decisions as private ship owners.
Thank you.
Yes, I think Petros said it very right. The biggest and perhaps the only significant disadvantage of being public is that you cannot sell when you probably should sell, because the market, the way the capital markets are made, is not going to reward you for doing that. I remember back in 2007 we had raised $100 million, and after a third follow-on within that year, and we had stopped investing, and we were criticized by the whole market that we have become a lazy company. We were saying we can't find investments to do, but we were criticized, and that criticism lasted for a long time till the market collapsed, and suddenly the analysts at least were saying, oh, you were smart not to do what we did. What we did then helped us not to dilute ourselves as much as other companies that actually invested all the money, and when the crisis came, needed money. We didn't need money, but we could not grow at the right time. We didn't have the capital. So we were stuck for the last 7 years because of our policy of not diluting existing shareholders, raising extra money, as most of the public companies did. It's a different game, and we have to realize that. I doubt that we can run a public company as a private company. I really doubt the dynamics are there. So, to an extent, of course, you have to, but it's very difficult, and I don't see it can be done. It's like a hedge fund that you say it's more short than long. That doesn't happen. So I think this is the biggest disadvantage of the capital markets, because it does not allow you to sell when you have to sell, but the advantages are huge, are humongous, and I really have enjoyed my ride over the last 12 years that we have been public. We were a very small company of 5 ships when we started off in 2007 and became public. Now we run 20 vessels. We have paid significant dividends to our shareholders in the good times. We have been suffering and become a much, much smaller company during the last years, but we believe that things will turn, and that the opportunities that we will get from being public in raising funds, in getting cheap financing, finding partners to partner with, all that is there, and it will not be there for a 5-ship private company.
Andreas?
Yeah, I have no experience at all as a public company. From the little I know, I think it's very good, because actually one guy I know that was public and went back private. So it must be something good in that. But from, I also think from the negative point of side, that it's distinct, different way of doing business. And I don't think it's much at all my way of doing business, which is taking advantage of the cycle. So I don't think that fits with the public company. And I don't think I want to share that.
Honesty is so refreshing. Well, Captain, you've been public for a while. You also have some assets in private ownership. You've seen your son really thrive as a public company CEO, which must give you joy. What's your perspective?
We've been public by chance. Because my sons, the thesis was public companies. So that is how we became public. And the first time the company was established in Oslo, 4 ships, tankers, to transfer 4 tankers of the company, of the private family to the public, and then we of course invested a couple of dozens of millions of dollars on top, and we became public. 10 years later we went to New York. Nikos enjoyed doing this, which I consider that it was is one way of starting something different and fresh, instead of following the steps of his father and not putting something new and more innovative together. And I'm very proud for the job he's doing. And he's so successful that he made us all follow and supporting him to the extent that the mother company, that it was the family company, has now a number of 25 ships. And the branch of the public company has 65 ships. So for me, it's a good experience, a good learning experience. And I think that once you are public, I cannot encourage or discourage anybody, but once you are public, like we happen to be, you can learn a lot of things, and you can transfer a lot of things to the public company from your experience as independent. And I agree that if we could impose in the family office, in the family company, the reporting and the accounting and the discipline and the structure of the public company is a plus. And if we could inspire the public company, the feeling of the family company, that this is one company, is a private company, and should be, no matter how many shareholders are, there is the same company. And the best of both worlds should be applied. I think you can have the best results. And at the end, I put the judgment that the future will be more encouraging, especially for the young generation, to be public will be a good. This is my experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that answer. George, do you want to have the last word? Do you have a point of view on that as well? And then maybe there's time for a question or so.
Having heard what I've heard so far, I think this is one underlying factor which I think came out in everybody's view. It's childish enthusiasm. Because at the end of the day, it's all very well, as you mentioned about how you run the public companies, but I got the feeling when every single one who spoke here, they went by their hunch, their gut feeling. I think earlier on today, for those who weren't here, I mentioned a term which I don't know whether it goes down to being confrontational, just being realistically honest. I use the term organised chaos. And I still say that, and I think my friends here and colleagues would actually share that view, because at the end of the day, if you have an inconsistent market, you've got volatility, you've got the ups and downs which are unpredictable. How on earth can you be logical in trying to make an assessment on a logical market? I'm sure each one of us here today, and especially my dear friend Panagiotis, who's, I think I've never known anybody who's got such childish enthusiasm. I think at the end of the day, one actually does think, the real decision maker, I think you get your gut feeling. You get up in the morning, you say, I think that is right. And in saying so, I'd like to convey a message to those in the room who are the younger generation. And again, I'm going to be politically incorrect. Don't listen to what you read in books. Don't listen to logic. Don't listen to theory. You go by a theory. Be absorbent, be influenced by it. But go by your gut feeling. And don't deceive yourself that making money or doing anything in shipping, you can't do it without taking risks. And when you're taking a risk, if you go in the right direction, you'll be congratulated. If you go in the wrong direction, you'll be criticized. That's the life of shipping. Unpredictable, and of course, last but not least, terrifically, amazingly romantic, which is perhaps one of the most beautiful ingredients of this business. We are romantic. We're literally, we don't live life, we flirt with life. Thank you.
George, that was quite poetic, inspiring. Hopefully I can be a ship owner one day.
Mark, it's because we're romantic that we're doing it on Valentine's Day.
There you go. That's you tied it all together. Well, on that note, it's probably time to start drinking, right? I'd like to obviously thank this all-star panel. I mean, this discussion, I can only imagine the audience enjoyed quite a bit. And again, that has nothing to do with the moderator, everything to do with a fantastic group of men and women, thankfully, is representative, and some great insights. And we appreciate the generosity of not just what you shared with us, but you know, the fact that what you expressed largely came from your heart, which I'm sure everyone enjoyed.
Are there any questions?
George, did you want to say something more?
If there's no questions, all I want to mention is that I'm sincerely thankful for Nicole for inviting me to chair the meeting today. I must apologize profusely if some situation was a bit erratic or somewhat confrontational with people who are going on with it, instead of being a panel presentation, going to a speech. Last but not least, talk about romanticism. I've had a bit of a tense day because my wife is giving birth to my 6th child in 10 days' time. She was in and out of hospital today. So I suppose in a way, does that go down probably as a new building project?
It is the best. I have 5 and Andreas has 5, so you are beating us by, with convincing, in a convincing way now.
I'm happy to lose that one. Anything else before we drink?
Any further questions, anybody? We're not in any hurry. If you want to have a question, I mean, obviously, we haven't really said anything out of wisdom. We said it out of being impulsive, but do the same. Any questions?
I don't have a question, no. I just make a remark until the question comes up. I want to say a big thank you to Nicholas and Olga for putting all this effort together since last year. To all the panelists and to our friends that came from Norway and from the US, all the way to Cyprus for the day to give us their insight and all their good moderation they give in the panel. And I want to thank all the participants, all the industry here, the maritime cluster, the ship owners, the ship managers, all the people who participate. I want to say my experience 3 years in Cyprus. It's a country that consists of highly educated people and big-time professionals. There are people, you see this in this room, nobody has left. We're here from 9 o'clock, all of us is 6:30, 20 to 7, and everybody is in, attending almost all the panels with the same interest. So it's an island that the people here like a lot what they are doing, and this for me is amazing, and I think that we're all very lucky to have an office here or to live here or to visit Cyprus.
Please emphasize, and everyone, absolutely every man wears a tie. I hope in Athens, I hope we take some ties back to Athens as we did.
Absolutely. Well, coming to the end of this forum, I can only express my gratitude. And I think if you allow me to speak from the heart, I don't think that what we have today has ever happened before in Cyprus, if you allow me to say that. I think this is unique. And it is unique not only because we have the top people with us, but because we have the top people from every segment. And as Polis mentioned, we have the whole cluster here today. So Olga and I, as the organizers, were deeply moved by your presence today. We are absolutely moved and gratified and grateful for the support we're getting from all of you, from our sponsors. And I thank you for allowing us to really do this every year. Our commitment to Cyprus is continuous, and thank you for a very long, beautiful, and lovable day. And now I think we can all enjoy a drink and get tremendous strength. I think when I saw this panel, as well as the previous panels before, I was saying to myself, wow, did we really manage to do this today? And we did, all of us. Thank you. So let's have a group photo if you don't mind. And I would also like to ask you from the first, there's only one panel we don't have a photo.